Right now, search crews are preparing to give us an update on their search for the missing boaters. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Phil Amato.
And I'm Dawn Lopez. Let's get right out there live to Naval Station Mayport, where organizers are giving an update on that search.
Go ahead, Chief. Good afternoon, and thank y'all for coming. I'd like to introduce everybody I got up here with me. To my immediate left is Captain Mark Vaughn from the U.S. Coast Guard. Our Fairfax Union President, Ron Cooley, is right here behind me. The Fairfax County Deputy Chief, Rick Roach, is right over here. And behind me here is Randy Wise, the Local 122 Union President. So an update for today. We have 100 searchers that are out searching from our operation today. They are working out of Jacksonville, Brunswick, and Savannah. That's about 32 boats working out of those three ports. In addition, we have about 8 boats that are working out of Charleston, South Carolina, that involves about 50 searchers that are they're looking from Charleston kind of to the south. In all, we're covering about 5,000 square miles today in our search efforts, and that's 32 gridded sections that we've assigned each boat to get into. As we've been doing every day, our headquarters is blowing up with requests to how we can help, and I'll reiterate, jfrd.com, and help find them. If you want to help, that's where you go. A lot of questions are coming forward about the family and family support. The 2 locals from Fairfax and from Jacksonville are supporting those family efforts. They literally have put their arms around both of those families and providing for every one of their needs. I want to thank the community again. Without the community support, this would not be happening. Us trying to find our 2 brothers, and their support is invaluable and very necessary. We got regional partners that are involved I need to thank as well, from the local area, regional law enforcement partners, regional fire department partners that are helping us search offshore. We have state assets. The state of Florida is providing assets to us as well, and then of course our federal assets that are being provided by the Coast Guard, the Navy, and Customs and Border Protection. Captain, again, I want to thank you for y'all can't understand the monumental effort that the Coast Guard is putting forward, leading this effort to find these two firefighters. And I want to bring up the captain now and let him brief what the Coast Guard is doing today. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Powers. I want to start just by thanking again some of our partners, the United States Air Force, U.S. Navy, Customs and Border Protection, Air and Marine, and Office of Field Operations, as well as all the way up and down the coast from Brevard to Duval to St. John's, Jacksonville, as well as our partners from Fairfax County who are here as well. I even just talked to the FBI Special Agent in charge this morning. We've talked to the Marshal Service, and one of the benefits the Coast Guard has as a law enforcement entity, a first responder, a member of the military, is we have a lot of partners and a lot of friends, and we're talking to everybody up and down the coast, looking for ideas, equipment, and special teams that we can bring in to aid us in this search. We did not find anything yesterday afternoon or overnight. We are checking into a couple of debris fields and trying to relocate some areas where we've got some notification of debris, but we have not yet identified anything that would lead us to believe that we've got the right target. At this point, our search is becoming quite extended. As I mentioned yesterday, we're in a race against time. We really are. That is becoming even more acute as we move forward. I have an asset this afternoon that will be 120 to 200 miles off Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, on a further end of our search, and we continue to search south of that down to the Charleston and Savannah area. But the drift and the Gulf Stream that we've been talking about now for a couple of days is working against us, and we're still dealing with a current that's moving 4 to 6 knots northerly. Which means every time I put a 4-hour search asset out on scene, the water underneath them and everything in it has moved between 12 and 20 miles from the time they get there to the time they depart. And that really gives you an idea of the order of magnitude we're dealing with, where now some of our early search objects and some of the things that we were drifting from day one are reaching New England, and we're still looking in areas as far south, obviously, as Cape Canaveral. So this really has become a truly extensive and massive search. We are out there now. We have plans. We have planes that are in aircraft and cutters that are heading out there for this afternoon, and we're setting up plans into the evening. And with each one of these successive search operations, we continue to evaluate as we move forward as to whether there's still a likelihood of success with search operations. And for today, we're continuing along that avenue. So thank you.
Captain, how long do you think you will continue the search?
So that continues to be a session by session. So every time we send out our search round and we get those pilots and those crews back, we debrief, we learn if we've learned anything new. We do some follow-on investigation. If there's been debris or anything located, we get search assets out to that. We collect that data, and that feeds the next planning cycle for the next layer of searches. Right now, the last known object we found is approaching 2 days old, which is the fish bag. And again, because of that, that's allowing our drift area to continue to expand in almost every direction. So at this point, we're still engaged today, and then based on what we learn here throughout the evening, we'll start having to have discussions about whether we can still actively search or whether we need to accept another posture.
Can you look up the debris fields, how many there are and where they are?
The challenge we're reaching with debris fields, and as I mentioned this yesterday, is there's a lot of trash in the ocean. So as we're finding things that may correlate, a lot of times our aircraft and our cutters are going back to pick up bags of trash, or we're picking up a styrofoam lid that may be 3 or 4 months old. We're finding things that have growth on it, for example. That's one of the challenges with any large area search. So every time we get any report of a field, we're coordinating our air assets and our surface assets to get to that area. And sometimes just relocating it can be a challenge, because you can see debris 1 minute, it can move in a different direction, it can sink, and that frustrates obviously the search and rescue assets out there. But that's the constant handoff that we're doing with our local partners, with our federal partners, with those people on the water and those people in the air. The communication is that tight, and as soon as we get a report, we try to get a surface asset onto whatever they may have been looking at. And up until now, with the exception of the bag, we've picked up a lot of different debris, but we haven't picked up anything that would correlate to this event.
With a lot of the civilian boats, they've been going 30 to 60 miles out. That's kind of what Chief's been asking for. How much searching is being done outside the stream, outside the lake?
That's where most of our searching is, because of the incredible amount of effort that Chief and partners have put into that 30-60 mile range. I've been able to put most of our effort offshore. So my cutters, for example, are 65, 70, 80 miles offshore, and some of the searches now with aircraft are extending outwards, even up to around 200 miles offshore. And this is all based on some really sophisticated computer modeling that'll tell us where any likely particles will drift as they go north. The challenge with that now is these drifted areas are approaching 250 miles and longer of area, and that's what becomes the problem. Is at some point your statistical advantage from sending a dedicated asset versus just a standard patrol asset, they start to become the same.
When you say race against time, can you explain what we're racing against?
The challenge, there's many challenges, and one obviously is just any person's survivability on the water. I mean, that is one of the factors that we constantly evaluate. The second is that the Gulf Stream, it tends to not only move what you're searching forward, but it also spreads out the possible area of search. So part of the time that we race against is by a day after that, you start to reach a search area that could be 250,000 square miles. And at that point when you've reached that large of a search area, your opportunity to find something with a dedicated asset and your opportunity to find something with a patrol asset suddenly become the same statistically. So that's the race that we're in, is that the area is literally becoming so large, and that's why each individual clue becomes so important, because if we can't narrow back down, we're only in an expanding scenario right now, and it just becomes a incredibly large ocean.
You're waking up this morning with that the next 24 hours are going to be a critical point for you guys to do this search. If by the end of today you don't find anything, will this be a turning point in the recovery for the rescue?
That's the conversations that we will have to start having based on the size of the search. And again, what it comes down to is the likelihood of success. So as a search area grows from 50,000 to 100,000 to 200,000 square miles, we simply have to have more information in order to send a dedicated flight or asset out to any given area. Our patrol assets in the Coast Guard, we always remain ready, relevant, and responsive. We always have aircraft. We've always got patrol craft underway between here and Maine on a daily basis. there are always Coast Guard assets on the water and in the air. The issue becomes, can you still send a dedicated asset? And if I do launch that asset, do I have a place to tell them to go? And as the drift area becomes astronomically large, my likelihood of telling them to go right or come left suddenly becomes the same.
How are you feeling today, Wednesday, entering our 6 days in this search?
We are still searching. We are still searching actively, and we still remain with our guarded optimism that today is a new day. But you know, I have to be honest that as we move forward, we're moving into a even more complex environment and an even larger environment, and it's a struggle for all of us. Every one of us, from Sector Jacksonville to Miami. I talked to my partners in as far north as Hampton Roads, North Carolina, Charleston. We're all feeling it. This is a big, spectacularly large and complex search, the most complicated I've seen in my career, and we're still out there searching today.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.